Helen just said
Okay,
she
perfect.
can't get on either.
Okay, we're figuring those pieces out, so we'll get those joined in. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to General Council of May 11th. I first would like to begin with any identification of any media on the line.
Victoria Gray from the Turtle Island News.
Good evening, Victoria. You're looking, is there any representatives from the Truro Times? Seeing none, so recognizing Victoria Gray from the Turtle Island News, I will then move to our next portion of the agenda. We usually have our opening address in Mohawk language from Amber Squire, who is unavailable to be with us this evening. I will then go to number 3 on our agenda, which is any changes or additions or deletions to the agenda of May 11th. I see Wendy.
Yeah, I'm just wondering on number 2 in the in-camera, can we pull that into open? Because at the last general council, we did that. So I'm wondering why it went back in camera. Especially 2B. I do see the letter from Ben Jetton, but that's just on the advice and there's nothing in it that's confidential. So it was brought into open so that it could be transparent and there was accountability with it.
Okay, sorry, which item are you referred to again on the in-camera agenda?
2B, well, all of 2. I mean, do both have to be in camera? Can they be open? But certainly 2B was in open at the last general council. It was pulled out of in camera and moved over. And there was nobody opposed to that from council.
Okay, so I know that, and I just want to go just to confirm with Shirley, I know that these pieces did come in from directors to be requested in camera. So I just want to confirm with Shirley, and then we'll look to full council to see if that's okay with pulling that out for open discussion on that item. Helen?
No, I don't agree with putting it in full meetings because according to what I was reading, they recommended it to be in camera. Ben Jetton or whoever was talking on there recommended that it stay in camera. Besides, we're dealing with company names and different things like that. And I don't even think the deal has been made yet, has it? So to speak.
Okay, I don't want to get into the discussion of it, but I'll look to you next, Audrey.
Yeah, I agree with Helen, what she's saying. We were told at the meeting when it was brought out last time that we'd talk about it, and we never did talk about it and discuss it. So yes, I agree that if our lawyer says that's the way it should be, I agree. In camera.
Okay, going back to Wendy.
But full council agreed to put it in open at the last general council. So the only thing that's changed is one line in a memo from the lawyer that says it should be their document. So we just don't talk about their document then. I mean, we can still take the advice. We just don't make that open, I guess, but.
The only concern I do have is in relation to where the conversation will go and in terms of those pieces, because there's a lot of interconnecting on those other items. So that is a concern that I have as well in terms of some of the items. I see Nathan has his hand up on, is it relating to this issue?
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. And I'm kind of along the lines of the topic should be open because it does impact the community, but we've already read the material, right? So if the topic should be an open session, then I think we should keep it an open session, and we have already read the in-camera material. That's just my perspective.
Okay, thank you for that, Nathan. I just want to go over to Shirley really quickly before we begin. Again, we're still on the adoption of the agenda. So Shirley, I just want to confirm in a sense, because there will be conversation and we may need also individuals in the chat. Do you know what time they were scheduled to come originally?
7 p.m.
Okay, so nonetheless, even if we do get to that point, I think that we still might run into that issue if there's any questions for individuals presenting on that issue. But again, there's 2, I heard from 2 counselors as well as another 2. So if I have to, I will just look to a vote to either bring that out of in camera or leave it as is. So I heard from 2 counselors. I heard from 2 agreeing to bring it out. I heard from 2 leaving it in. So I'm just going to look to the others.
Yep.
I'll go with Michelle and then over to Carrie.
I see no issue with it being in the open. The community will hear about it. There's really no issue. At the end of the day, Ben gave us advice and it's the council who determines, right?
Definitely. Thanks, Michelle. Carrie.
Well, we had advice from our legal team, so I would say leave it where it is.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. That's 3. Sherry Lynn.
I'm okay with it being an open.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Is there any other counselors on the line, Melba? Melba, you're on mute. I believe it's Melba, or I don't think it's Hazel. Hazel had sent a message that she'd be late for this meeting. So Melba, are you on the line?
Yeah, but I just got on, so I don't know what you're talking about. Just inform me very briefly.
Sure. So we're currently still on the adoption of the agenda. Councillor Johnson has requested that item in camera, item 2B, be open, move to the open session for discussion. And so that's what we're on at this point. There's Councillors Michelle, Wendy, Nathan, and Sherry Lynn who don't have issue with bringing it open. But Councillors Audrey, Helen, and Carrie want to keep it as is and maintain it in the in-camera discussion.
I guess we'll go with the recommendation, like Carrie said, of legal counsel.
Okay, so that's 4 against 4. I guess council's now leaving it up to myself. I think at this point in time, I do have still the concern with the conversation in terms of the interconnectedness. So eventually I think the community will know for sure and will look to that piece. But for now, I will vote to keep it in camera as is. That being said, is there a motion to adopt the general council agenda of May 11th?
I'll move. It's Melba.
Moved by Melba, second by Carrie. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motions carried.
I oppose, Mark.
Oh, my apologies, 1 opposed. I will then now go to the next agenda item. My apologies, sorry, just lost it here. Okay, so we do have a delegation that is joining us this evening from the SEED program. A SEED presentation. Is Justine Henhock on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Justine Henhock Bomberry. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Justine Henhock Bomberry. My apologies.
Yes, thank you.
Again, just want to welcome you and your team and representatives from the SEED program as well to General Council. So that being said, I will pass the floor right over to yourself, Justine.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm leaving my video off because my bandwidth, or however you want to describe it, is pretty touchy right now. So I might disconnect. And I'm running on 2 internet service providers right now. So if I disconnect from one, I reconnect from another. But beside the point, just so you know. Thank you for allowing us to be present tonight for the presentation of the Science, Education, and Employment Development Annual Report for 2020. And my understanding, you would have received copies of this report along with additional documents that were also part of the report. But before I start, just to introduce myself, Justine Henhock Bomberry, Director of Post-Secondary Student Services at Grand River Post-Secondary Education Office, and I'm also the SEED Steering Committee Chairperson. And with us tonight are also representatives from Imperial Oil. So if we can have them introduce themselves, starting with Kelly Williams.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for welcoming us to your virtual meeting. I'm Kelly Williams. For the past 3 years, I have been the designated Imperial Administrative Resource on the committee. It has been a great privilege to work with the committee and get to know the Six Nations community and all of the educational programs that you offer your membership. My term on the committee is coming to an end, and I'll be handing the baton over to Tom Horvath. He'll be filling my seat. I've worked very closely with Tom for the past year, and I can assure you it's going to be a very smooth transition. Thank you for welcoming us tonight, and I'm very happy to be here to answer any questions on behalf of the steering committee that you might have about the programs we supported in 2020. So Tom, I'll let you also introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Kelly. My name is Tom Horvath. Thank you again for this opportunity to be a part of this meeting. I'm coming to you from Calgary, Alberta. So I live and work with Imperial Oil out here in Calgary. But as Kelly mentioned, I will be taking over some of the administrative responsibilities for the SEED program on behalf of the Imperial Oil side. And I'm looking forward to working more and more with the Six Nations community and hopefully getting out to visit you sometime when COVID restrictions allow sometime in the near future. Yeah, I don't have too much more to add. I'm going to listen and learn about the program a lot myself. I've learned a lot about it over the last few months, and I think it's a great program, something that the community and the company should be proud of, and all of the good work that's been done. But I will hand it over to my colleague from the Nanticoke Refinery, John Galloway.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to join the virtual meeting tonight. Yeah, my name is John Galloway. I'm the Safety, Health, and Environmental Manager for the Nanticoke Refinery. Fairly new. I've been here since the end of last summer. Had an opportunity to meet with Chief Hill there a few weeks back. One of the topics was around seed, so I got quite interested in that. And so I thought I'd take this opportunity to sit in on the annual report presentation, learn a bit about it, and get a feel for the effectiveness and how it's meeting the needs of the community. So thank you again for welcoming me in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John, and nice to meet you. I don't think we've actually met.
No, not
Okay,
yet.
so, right, exactly. So just a little bit of a background about the SEED committee and everything that was established. So the original agreement between Imperial Oil and Six Nations Electric Council was signed in January of 2002. And as outlined in the agreement, the purpose of the steering committee is to develop and recommend programs that support the objectives of the agreement and oversee annual expenditures based on the program support approvals. And Six Nations and Imperial Oil representatives collaborate to develop and recommend programs that focus on employment and education, primarily in the science, the technology, and the trades areas, and to encourage Six Nations members to acquire skills and qualifications for employment in these sectors. So the steering committee is comprised of representatives from Six Nations and Imperial Oil, and we meet quarterly to review the programs and expenditures. And these meetings are hosted by Grand River Post-Secondary Education Office. And the decisions are made by discussion and consensus. The Six Nations representatives to the committee are Rebecca Jameson, who's the president and CEO of Six Nations Polytech STEAM Academy, Michelle Bomberry, Service Canada team lead with GREAT, but she has since been replaced by Peggy Claveau, who's with GREAT, and Jeannie Martin, who's the Native Advisor with the Grand Area District School Board, and Noyes, the Transition Special Education Advisor with the Six Nations District Schools, and the Imperial Oil representatives to the committee, Kelly Williams, who we've just met, Tom Horvath, who's be replacing Kelly, and Laura Robertson, who's the environmental and regulatory lead with Nanticoke, and Cassandra D'Souza, who is the human resources manager at Nanticoke. So that's the committee. And as I had mentioned earlier, you would have received the annual report 2020 summary. So this report summarizes the programs that were funded in 2020. So it highlights elementary, secondary, and post-secondary initiatives, as well as the employment initiatives. So part of this report, each committee member provided the information to their specific areas that they oversee for the programs that are funded under the SEED fund. So overall, the goal of the SEED committee is to utilize this funding to meet the objectives of the agreement and to support programs for the benefit of the Six Nations community. So part of that is we evaluate and measure the outcomes of the programs to ensure the success, and we continue to collaborate between Imperial and the Six Nations community. So were there any questions about the report?
Mark, it's Audrey.
Okay, thank you. I see hands being raised. Justine, I'm going to first begin with Audrey and then over to Sherry Lynn.
Yeah, hello, Justine, welcome. I'd just
Hi.
like to know if you
Hello.
would go over a few of the items that are sponsored by Imperial Oil, so that people who are hearing this for the first time have some idea of the good that's being done. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So in the report, there was actually, here we have 11, 14. So 14 programs overall that were funded. So Beyond the Bell, which is the after-school program facilitated by the YMCA of Hamilton, Burlington, and Brantford. So the focus on this program was literacy, numeracy, nutrition, and recreation. And this was for the elementary schools here at Six Nations. And however, due to the pandemic, the program was only funded from January to March of last year. Another program funded was the Six Nations Polytechnic School STEAM Academy. So part of that sponsorship or the support to that program was the development of new courses for each new year of the secondary school and the college studies. So in 2020, 38 new courses were developed and delivered, as well as 6 dual credit courses at the secondary and college level. And then there was the Science Day Camp, which was the Mad Science program, and that was held during the summer of 2020 in August, but of course it had to be a virtual camp. And with that, there were 100 activity kits delivered to students. And it was quite a successful camp, given the fact that it had to be virtual. I didn't cut out, did I? Am I still on? Good, okay, thank you. And of course, with the Six Nations elementary schools, with the science fair, there was funding to support projects. And again, due to the pandemic, there was limited work that was done around the science fairs, but what was provided was a language and for the language and cultural teachers, introduce outdoor activities related to taking care of Mother Earth. And again, this will continue in all schools as they build links to the culture and the science curriculum. Another piece of the funding was for the Six Nations schools, additional qualification courses, the AQ for professional development at the teaching level for Six Nations band members. In 2020, 17 teachers took a variety of AQ courses. And the subjects were in the assistive technology, visual arts, outdoor experiential education, math, special education, native studies. And then we also had the homework support program. So that was tutoring for Six Nations students. And that was from January of 2020 to March 2020. And of course, the pandemic resulted in it being on closed down from April to October. But during the time when the support was there, 112 students did get support for tutoring. And then once the schools opened up in September, the plan was to get schools and teachers and students familiar with the online platforms for tutoring in November. And that was delivered through MS Teams. So they did have homework support provided to the elementary students, secondary students, and some post-secondary students. And then another program was the Stay in School Awards. So these awards were offered to and recognize the hard work of the Six Nations students from grade 7 through grade 12 who achieved top marks in science and math. So in last year, 27 Six Nations students received a Stay Award. Then there's the SEED scholarships. That's open to Six Nations members who are currently receiving financial assistance through Grand River Post-Secondary. And priority is given to students who are in the field of study relevant to petroleum industry, engineering, business administration, commerce, computer science, and environmental science. So 3 scholarships were granted to students last year who were enrolled in a Bachelor of Business Administration, a Business Admin program, Human Resources, and Master of Arts in Learning and Technology. And then there's the Great Apprenticeship Awards. And this is for students, or no, participants, I should say, who apply and meet the posted criteria. $4,000 was awarded in 2020, and $4,000 will be awarded again for 2021. And there's also support for tuition assistance and book allowance assistance for Six Nations post-secondary students, and that's administered through Grand River Post-Secondary Education Office. And last year, 12 students were supported for tuition and book assistance. So these students who were supported were enrolled in programs such as electrical engineering, chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, Bachelor of Engineering, welding and fabrication, and welding techniques. And through Grand River Employment and Training, the Apprenticeship and Training Program supported the Work Ready Indigenous Trade Experience Program. And there's a flyer that was actually provided to everyone today just to expand on the information.
Okay, great,
of course,
thank you.
There's the grad. Oh, there's a couple more, sorry.
Sorry, my apologies.
There's also the grad. Oh, sorry, no problem. So there's the grad promotion. Again, that highlights the graduates from Grand River Post-Secondary. And then there's the Six Nations Polytech STEAM Robotics program. And that information was added and sent to you today, highlighting the robotics competition that the students from the STEAM Academy participated in. And then finally, there's the online learning support that's available, that was available through Six Nations Polytech, which was specific to the STEAM Academy students. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Justine. So it really goes to show the amount of good work that the SEED program has been offering our community in individuals since 2002. I want to then now look to Sherry Lynn.
No, that was just mine, just for her to read them out for the community.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sherilyn. Yeah, I know it's been a little bit challenging with now having to shift over to everything virtually, so it's been when we've had presentations, it's always usually been an actual slideshow type just for community. So they are well aware of what the discussion is about and where it's going. So again, just wanted to say thank you, Justine, for reading all those programs and awards that again have been contributed through the Imperial Oil and the Seed program. So is there any further questions or comments for Justine or any others on the line? I know just in our conversations, I did have the opportunity to meet a couple of weeks ago with John and Tom, and we got to go really more in depth in conversation. We talked, I know there's a renewal date coming up as well. So maybe Justine, if you want to just touch a little bit on the renewal date and the overall total funding. I know it's every 7 years to my knowledge.
Right. Is that something Tom or Kelly could speak to?
Yes, for sure, Justine. Thank you. The seed agreement was established between Imperial Oil and Six Nations of the Grand River back in 2002. At that time, the funding amounts were $250,000 per year. Since then, the agreement has been renewed twice. The latest time, I think, was in 2016. And it is up, and every renewal period is for 7 years. It's been so far. And so the current agreement is up for renewal again at the end of 2022, so December 2022. So we have still about the rest of 2021 and all of 2022 still under the agreement. The funding dollar amounts go up each year based on the consumer price index. So it's indexed for inflation. So every year the funding dollar amounts go up. So now the last year was, correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, but I think it was about 306,000. So it's gone up from 250,000 a year to currently it's at about 306. And we think for 2021, the dollar amount will probably be about $308,000. And just, I hope that answers your questions, but Imperial, we're just pleased to be collaborating with the community and supporting some good programs. And we look forward to continue to working with the community.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for that background, Tom. I think another piece that was a nice highlight of our discussion as well is in terms of advisory councils. I know, and I had mentioned young people playing a role within, these types of, areas of projects and things like that, as well as, different companies. And I think that's where really, I think it might be, worth continuing that discussion in terms of engaging other young people within our territory to, one, learn more and get involved, and again, look to see where we can, again, try to help advise or serve in areas, I think that, at times corporate minds don't necessarily go to. I think that was one area of our discussion that was very enlightening in terms of, where Imperial Oil can go in terms of inclusiveness to more young people. I just want to look to, sorry, John, if you had any comments?
I was just going to comment that I thought that was a positive dialogue and, fully support exploring what opportunity is there in that space. Very much interested in talking a little bit more about that and seeing what we might be able to do.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for that, John. I just really quickly want to go to, are there any other further questions or comments for Justine, Kelly, Tom, or John? I see Audrey has her hand up.
I just want to know if you need this as a motion to accept for information, in which case I'll move it.
I think at this time, yeah, definitely. If you are willing to move that, Audrey, as a motion. So there's a motion on the floor that we accept this presentation report as information during this time. Is there a seconder to that motion?
I'll second it, Mr. Melba.
Second by Melba. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion's carried. again, to the team, Justine and Kelly, it was a short time, but I know we got to meet a couple times over your term, but wish you well in your next chapter. And as well, Tom, welcome to the new role, and looking to really just furthering the relationship and where we could further discuss on opportunities and further collaboration. So Justine, again, just wanted to say thank you to you as well for providing this report to council. And again, just look forward to next steps and positive discussions.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Thank you very
Chief.
much. I appreciate everything.
Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good evening. Take care
Pleasure
and
to
stay
meet
safe.
you. Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, take care, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, council, that moves us on to our next agenda item. I have, which is the adoption of the general council minutes of April 27th.
I'll move and give it Nathan.
I'll second. Sherilyn.
Thank you, Nathan and Sherry Lynn. It's moved by Nathan, second by Sherry Lynn to adopt and accept the minutes of April 27th. Are there any further questions or comments in relation to the minutes? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion's carried. We'll now move into item number 6 on our agenda, which is recommendations from the Ethics Committee. We have recommendation 1, which will need a mover and seconder. I'm not sure if council has had to review. Okay, see, there's a motion to moved by Melba. Is there a seconder? Nathan?
I'll second it. Yep.
Okay, second by Nathan. Questions or comments? So again, just for communities, this reads that the Six Nations Ethics Research Committee recommends to the elected council to approve Miguel Sol's application to conduct research titled Creating an Urban Indigenous Spaces in Kitchener-Waterloo. So it's been moved and seconded. Seeing questions or comments, Wendy?
So what is it? I didn't see in the package, I don't see the backup documentation for it. So does anybody know what it is, and just 2 sentences or less, and what the impact to us is?
I will. It's Melba. Yeah, it's he's from Wilfrid Laurier. He's conducting academic research, and Darren Thomas is part of the research team. And the city of Kitchener recently committed to reconciliation with Indigenous people in the watershed, and seeks to create an Indigenous place downtown in Radvick Park to honor our Indigenous people. And the space will feature Indigenous artwork, monument, traditional garden, and other educational and interactive installations related to our culture in the gathering space that's going to be designated.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Is there anything further you'd like to add, Nathan?
Yeah, just in terms of the process piece, I'm definitely acknowledging now that the summary wasn't provided in the material for full council. So I'm wondering if we want to defer both of these items, get the summaries in there, and then we can go to more wholesome conversation, because that was a piece that was supposed to be in as part of this process, right? Because just so full council knows, we brought the presenters in, they gave full presentations of their research, but I thought we were pulling forward at least the summaries to come to full council. So I'm wondering if that needs to get done, and then we can bring it back. I know I'm a seconder on this, but I'm just wondering if that could be considered.
That's fine. Thank you, Nathan.
Thanks for that, Nathan. Just looking to council, if that's okay that we defer these 2 items. Sherilyn, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I see the one for recommendation 2, but I don't see.
Yeah, and that was,
one.
to be honest, I it was just the first one, I believe, because I had the summary to them as well. but I think we had maybe some, because I don't know if everything got into Dropbox, so maybe it's just an administrative issue. But again, recognizing the process, Nathan.
Yeah,
So
I think
looking
this is
to-
recommendation 1. We might be able to do 2. I'm not sure if it hit all the inboxes, but at least 1 I know didn't go in. So
I think also too, though, in the sense that in terms of, noting the process, but if we can, like the mover and seconder user, like as the ethics committee can provide that summary. And I think that's what Wendy was referring to, is just that piece. So I'm just looking to see how council would like to proceed on both of them, whether or not we have to defer them per se. Wendy?
Yeah, I don't have an issue. I assume, as Nathan has said, that, presentations were made and ethics committee has done that. So I don't have any issue with that. My only question is, I don't see what's the impact to the community, because if we're approving the research, there's usually an impact to us. And that's what I don't see in the summary, or, I mean, there's nothing for the first one, but certainly in the second one. I see what the results are to improve the way care is delivered in the future, but is that for here? Because it's talking about pharmacies. Is it our pharmacy, or is it some other pharmacy, or it's just the impact to us, so that we know, we've got the front end and the back end, what we can expect.
Right. And that's usually the process within ethics itself too, right? If I'm correct, Nathan, in terms of getting those high level pieces, like
in the high level
impact.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be in the application too, in terms of those pieces too. So
okay, so maybe what we'll do just for the agenda's sake is we'll defer item 1 and then look to item 2, because I think we have all the pertinent information in front of us in order to make that decision. So maybe if we can if we'll look to the mover and seconder, if that's okay, if we defer your item 1, and then I'll look to the second recommendation.
I'll move on the
So
second
looking to-
recommendation. It's Melba.
Okay, thank you for that, Melba. It's moved by Melba. Is there a seconder?
I can.
Seconder for, second by Michelle. Are there any further questions or comments? Again, thank you, Nathan, for bringing that up in terms of process. We'll make sure on the administrative side that all is included as well. I think even from the committee level to make sure those pieces of process. Wendy?
So just, I mean, I see we're passing it, and even if we pass the first one, that's fine. But can somebody just verbally say what the outcome is, like a sentence? That's all my question was.
Yeah, and I didn't want to necessarily hold the motions up just based upon, because I think that, like, when I read that information and when you reference the impact, I think I just, if we could look to Melba or Nathan on the ethics committee to perhaps maybe even give those one line, or Michelle rather, sorry, on the impact.
Again, it's Melba. I think the overall goal is supposed to be to provide patient care in a culturally respectful way, which helps patients make decisions with the healthcare team about their care. Because a lot of times we don't understand. I guess I know I go through that when I get medication. I don't know what is this for? What is that for? What is it supposed to do for me? So I think in that way, that's what they hope to improve, the relationship and the decision making and how it affects the patients.
Okay, thank
In a
you.
culturally specific way.
Thank you for that, Melba. I see Audrey has her hand up, and I'll shift over to Nathan.
Maybe that comment could be taken back to the committee, and they could make sure that that is included in what impact of Six Nations does your project have, and that way we don't have to ask everybody, because they'll already have it in part of their criteria. Thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was referring to as well in terms of process. Nathan?
yeah, just trying to get back to Wendy's question too. So the impact, as I understood it, is the research is nationwide. So it's not just looking at Six Nations and these pieces, but for future pharmacies, they'll have this research study. If one comes to Six Nations, I think that'll be the impact in terms of looking at how they do their care going forward. So just a direct, trying to get a little bit more direct in looking at the work. I think that's where the impact comes into Six Nations, is any future pharmacists coming in, we'll have this study to kind of look back on.
So working with our dialysis patients here.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Melba and Nathan. Is there any further questions or comments in relation to the motion? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion's carried. So we'll defer item still 1 and then still make those notes, those noted changes in terms of process, so that we know when everything and anything that comes from ethics, we'll know those high level pieces when it comes to this table. The next item on the agenda then is in relation to the CUGA money. So the letter that we received, and this is just basically for information, because we do, well, not just for information, we have to make a decision as well. I'm just gonna, if you just give me 2 minutes
Mark,
here, I'm
can
just
I
bringing this up.
interrupt you? Mark, can
Yeah,
I
sorry,
interrupt
go.
you? Do you want to waive second? Do you want to waive second reading on that one?
Oh, my apologies. Sure. Are you motioning the waiving of
waive.
second reading?
Yes.
Okay, thank you
yes.
for that, Melba. Is there a seconder? Seconder to waive second reading on the previous motion, second by Michelle. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, thank you for that, Melba and Michelle. I will also now just go to the next item in terms of the CUGA dollars. Actually, this is a follow-up item. I believe, Melba, this was one of your items that you had brought forward for new business sometime. I think it was
Yes.
maybe a few weeks ago. So this is really, you'll have this copy within your Dropbox. And it's basically looking to see what options that we want to choose in terms of getting out the CUGA dollars. So the deferring, so the options include either deferring the tree payment event to the fall of 2021 or until 2022, when conditions are expected to be safer, or 2, First Nation administered treaty payment, which is an event at community level following regional guidelines, and 3, a virtual symbolic event with payments via check or First Nations administered. So there's a few items within that letter that we have to reply to, but I thought I would just bring this forward for information at this time, and then really look to how we would like to proceed. Obviously, given the amount of cases and VOCs in our community and the cancellations that we've made thus far, we'll definitely have to look to how we're going to deliver the CUGA monies. So that's just looking to see if there's any discussion points at this time.
Chief?
Sure, go ahead, Kerry.
How long does that money actually stay there, like the CUGA money? I think you normally get it like every other year. And is there a cutoff date when, because I don't think I've gotten it for, I don't know, 40 years. So
I think it's sorry, Melba?
No, I just chuckled. 40 years, that's a long time, that's all. And that might be true for other people too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in a sense, and then we could further follow up, but it's a cumulative, right? So over the years, it's still, because I'm just by the letter, it looks like we'll have to fill out the Annex A in terms of response, but I think it's, to answer your question, Kerry, I'm pretty sure it's a cumulative over the years.
So I might be able to retire then if I collect.
That's a good luck.
Yeah.
So I brought that for information just at this time. We do, again, I want to have a response back to in terms of the best way moving forward, but know that, again, this is just really in follow-up to Melba's question as well, in terms of what our plans are and how we're going to distribute those dollars. Is there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, I will bring this back forward at the next meeting in terms of our plans and where we go from there, and then we'll look to communication and providing that communication out to to full community. Nathan, I see Nathan has his hand up.
Yeah, just maybe as a way to generate some ideas, reach out to other treaty areas and see how they're doing their distribution, collect that up, and then we can have that for when we have to make our decisions going forward.
That's a great point. Thank you for that, Nathan. We'll definitely look to that suggestion. Is there any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing or hearing none, we don't need a motion for that. Again, it's just as a FYI. That leads us then into our next item under scheduling. We do have, again, a to be determined scheduling with the Language Commission in terms of long-term planning. I know we're still working with them on ongoing issues in relation to finances as well as the MOU. So those pieces I think will be also a part of the long-term planning strategy session. We need to also look to rescheduling political liaison, as the 24th is a stat day. So just really quickly to read out where we are currently. So General Council this evening, moving into tomorrow is building and infrastructure. Into next week is finance, as well as corporate and emergency services, leading into the statutory holiday, which offices are closed on the 24th, which I've mentioned in relation to political liaison. And then our next General Council will be on the end of the month, May 25th. As well as closing off with our Environment Committee towards the end of the month on the 26th. So just looking to see really quickly if we're interested to reschedule political liaison at this point in time. I'm just wondering if the following Monday works or which day works best. Suggestions?
Sherry Lynn. I think the 31st is fine. The 31st?
Okay, that was going to be my suggestion too. Thank you, Sherry Lynn. Michelle, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was going to say the next day, but even the following Monday, it's fine.
Okay, so sorry, Michelle again.
And I did have, and maybe I should have added it as a new item, but when I seen the Language Commission on there, I wanted to bring up a comment and just ask a question. So I don't know if this is the right time. But let's finish scheduling, I guess, a political liaison meeting, and then we'll talk about language.
Okay, thanks for that, Michelle. Is there any opposition then to move political liaison to the 31st? Okay, seeing or hearing none, just for Renee and Shirley, if we can make note of that and change the date of political liaison to the 31st. So thank you for that. I'll go back really quickly to Michelle, your comment in relation to language.
Okay, so recently I've received a call, a text, and actually myself, I've had this firsthand knowledge in my daughter's school, and the fact that we don't have fluent language speakers teaching our children. And I'm not sure if that's at all schools, but Audrey, being the education rep, what is Indigenous Affairs doing to recruit? And I guess it's timely because I sit at the Language Commission too, and in speaking with the coordinator, I mean, that's something, we need those speakers, those teachers, and how are we going to go about doing this? So Audrey, is there a recruitment strategy for ISC to recruit Mohawk and Cayuga language teachers?
I know that they try their best. I know that they're in demand. I know that Grand Erie is also looking for people to fill courses, but I could reach out to Kathleen Manderville and ask her for her direct knowledge of a recruitment strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do that for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think we really need to teach our children from our own speakers, right? So, I mean, this is elementary, this is secondary. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Michelle and Audrey, for follow-up. And of course, we'll have more fulsome discussion on that meeting day once we schedule that piece as well. Wendy, and then over to Sherry Lynn.
Yeah, just a quick question. Sorry, I'm not following. So if our own language speakers are not teaching, then who's teaching? I'm not, can you be a little bit more clear with the issue?
So I know at our school, they've had a non-Indigenous teacher teaching. And so, I mean, it's, even myself, I mean, I wouldn't do that because I don't know. I know the basics, but don't call me a teacher. So I mean, I wouldn't take that on myself. And I think that's an area we really need Indigenous Affairs to look at.
So is Kathleen aware of that?
Just really quickly, sorry, I just, I know it's an item for discussion, but if I can, I know we can get really in depth with discussions. So I just want to look to the agenda and follow. So Michelle, if perhaps we can continue to and just list these concerns. And when we schedule the full meeting, we'll have a more fulsome discussion and ask these specifics. That way we're all prepared and can be able to fully answer these. Sherry Lynn?
Yes, that would be great because I had the same concerns as non-natives teaching. So if that would be at the meeting, that would be great. ASAP.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that, Sherry Lynn. So we'll work on those pieces and getting that meeting scheduled as soon as possible again, so that we can start to address these concerns that are being raised. The next item that I had is just really in terms of just quick FYIs for political updates. I did have the opportunity to join the Leadership Council this morning, sorry. And one of the items that came out of there, obviously, there's a number of items that we've met with Minister Miller on this afternoon, inclusive to child welfare, education. I do want to reach out to some of, I don't want to say call use portfolio leads, but it's almost in a sense that you are. So I do want to reach out to pick some of your brains on some of these issues, and as well we'll include more fulsome in terms of the activity report that we referenced yesterday at our strategy session. But just one of the items that I also wanted to bring to your attention, and I'm sure other councillors have had this concern come forward in terms of the AFN elections. That was one item that was discussed this morning. And Ontario's position is that the executive, or rather the leadership council, was to write to the AFN to proceed with the July date. But as we've heard over the past weeks, there has growing concern of the elections being so close to, again, the least amount of time to prepare, as well as a number of other items of concern. And so I really wanted to just have a quick discussion and comment around that piece on the AFN election and see, because again, we also have the Chiefs of Ontario election coming up. And that's, these are all coming up in June and July, so it doesn't really give much time. I know tomorrow is the official nomination day for candidates for national, but haven't really even heard much within our own region as well in terms of candidates. So, I mean, again, once we start to get those in, we'll have to start to formalize as to who, the Six Nations would be supporting in each of these elections. But again, just wanted to bring that forward as political updates to see and hear if any other councillors have had any other concerns or issues around the AFN election. So just want to pause there for now and look to see if there's any questions or comments at this point. Sherry Lynn?
Yeah, I was at the justice meeting and that was brought up regarding your meeting today and wanting to push it to December. So something's going on, or somebody doesn't meet the deadline. I'm not sure what's going on at the national level to be able to be a candidate. But I think we just stick with policy and procedures, and whenever the date is to vote, you vote. Because I'm not sure why they keep wanting to push it to December. Seems like they're waiting for somebody to get the deadline.
And thank you. Those were also raised concerns as well this morning's meeting, Sherilyn. So thank you for those. I want to shift over now to Nathan and then over to Wendy.
Thanks, Chief. Yeah, and I guess to get to the heart of the concerns, the fact of the matter is a lot of the concerns haven't been responded to from AFN or the Chief Electoral Officer yet. So you talk about accountability and transparency. Some of those concerns and the response from the Chief Electoral Officer that haven't been answered are around the time frame, right? You have a virtual election nationally, and you got the time shifts and the time change nationally. So that's one issue. How are proxies going to be addressed virtually? That's another issue. So I think it's all related to how the Chief Electoral Officer is going to deliver on a lot of these things. And, from the standpoint, I would have liked to seen answers to those prior to folks going forward with nominations. Because now you're getting into, as Sherry Lynn pointed out, some of the trickery that goes on. And we all know that happens at these national levels as well. So I was more hoping, and I guess we're at the 11th hour now, but, you know, open, transparent, being accountable for an organization to at least provide answers to that on how they're going to do that election would have been helpful. But like I said, I think we're at the 11th hour now, and I guess they're going to proceed.
Okay, thank you. And again, valid points as well, Nathan. And some of those items, I know one of the discussion going back and forth too is, you know, just getting Ontario's position. I think that was one of the goals for today's meeting on this piece. Wendy?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one for sure, but I guess when I hear that, you know, there's not enough time to plan for this. Well, you know, there's been what, 3 years? I think that's a term of the national chief. So they've had 3 years. We've been in a pandemic for 1.5 years now. So they had 1.5 years to plan. So this is not, you know, this didn't just get sprung on everybody. So, and, you know, you talk about the accountability, as Nathan has said, well, that's the executive, right? There's representation from every province and territory across the country. So they all sit there and they should have had this at play. The national chief announced he's not running again a long time ago. So that's been open. So again, it's not new. So if they're behind in doing this process, then they need to speed up and get everything together. And I would hope that they have some sort of plan. But I agree with what Sherry Lynn is saying. I mean, there's probably some sort of, you know, jockeying at play. And, you know, I've just heard rumors, and probably others have as well. So, and I think it's just kind of a wait and see what happens. But, you know, looking to you, Mark, with what information you provide once you know some concrete information, and then we can have that fulsome discussion on it and make a decision.
Definitely. And again, I want to, so this will be forthcoming next week, and that I'll be able to provide more of that concrete information in order for us to make then, you know, our next step. But that's what, you know, we were going back and forth in terms of, you know, legalities and all those pieces. And that was really the basis around the conversation. But Ontario did make a decision that they would maintain the time frame of July for the election. That came out of the Leadership Council as well this morning. Wendy?
Yeah, sorry, but I mean, at the end of the day, they have bylaws that they have to adhere to. So whatever it says in the policies and the procedures, that's what they have to follow anyhow. And there's a bit of, I would think, I mean, I'm just kind of open discussion right now, but I mean, it's kind of dependent on the existing national chief too, because if you're saying to push back, I mean, you have to get some agreement on that. And I don't know if you've heard anything one way or the other on that either. So lots of things.
Yeah, so definitely lots of things. And I think again, we'll continue to keep up on this issue and provide more fulsome updates again as more information becomes available. Is there any other further questions in relation to that specific item? Okay, seeing or hearing none, I'll move on just really quickly. Again, just a really quick recap. This morning we did have on the line Premier Ford, who announced an economic recovery prosperity table that is going to be launched, basically in response to post-COVID and how we can get back to again economy and bringing you know, our business back to communities and so forth. So that was an opportunity, I think. Again, we didn't get too much into discussion as to what this table is going to look like, but it was, again, this is its first announcement that this table is agreed upon from Ontario, and we'll look to how we can best support First Nations communities in that area of economy. The other piece that we just touched on really quickly was in relation to the private members bill. I think Nathan, you may have some background to this item from NDP Saul. Who provided that bill in relation to putting, basically it's in relation to the Safe Drinking Water Act, which we all know has some issues to that because there's no funding attached to that as well. The other issue is that, you know, there's no funding attached to even Saul's private members bill. So that was one of the concerns as well. But there are other areas, you know, that we need to discuss further. And so the Leadership Council also passed a resolution that, or rather directed the Secretariat to set up meetings with SUL to get more of a thorough understanding on the concerns across all First Nations and Ontarios and what those impacts could be if the private bill does pass. Again, the biggest concern still being, is that that there's no funding attached. So, that's always a #1 issue whenever anything is being tabled. The other piece too that I just wanted to touch on, so the Premier Forward Economic is in relation to just really quickly of our strategy session yesterday and how we're going to move forward in that area. Again, we want to continue to have those sessions, and I believe our next session is, we want to try to do them in the next, every 2 weeks, so that we're again looking to the development and then furthering to the implementation and then further to that status of each of these pieces. And so that we'll be bringing all of these items back to full council for, by virtue of an activity report on a weekly basis. And that's really going to help, again, give more information to community on different files and where the status is of each. And as well to really help in terms of our communication, both internally and externally, again, on just a number of files and issues across the board. So we'll look to start to get our goal is to have our first activity report this week to full council and every week to the remaining of our term to help us again offset in terms of where we're going with our strategies, both as here as within community and overall politically at every level of government. So there's a lot of work happening on those pieces, trying to keep abreast of everything. And so we'll look to those items as, again, more information becomes available. So I just thought I'd provide just a quick verbal political update on that piece, just from today's meetings. And again, there's many more scheduled in the upcoming days and weeks. So we'll provide, again, more information as it becomes available. Is there any other further questions in relation to any of the new items that I just brought up? Again, we'll find out more information on this prosperity table. I think this is opportunity to really, again, it's aligned perfectly with our timing in relation to strategy and putting those in place. So really you have to pull in those areas, not only with the federal budget, but as well as these tables that are being offered. Michelle?
Sorry, I just wanted to go back to the Language Commission. Was a date set? I missed the date.
No, sorry. So just really quickly, if we can, just because I know that there's a number of items that have to be scheduled. Those are 2. If we can just look to our emails tomorrow to set that date, Michelle, I just want to reconfirm that we're all on the same page with all dates, really. That's another piece that we're going to be bringing forward attached to the activity report is just the overall monthly calendar to these dates. So if I can, Michelle, just leave it with us in the political team to schedule tomorrow. So just keep an eye on your emails tomorrow to verify that date. And it will be much sooner than later. Okay, that being said then, Council, if there's no further questions or comments, that's all I have for the open session. I'll then look to a motion to adjourn. Is there a mover? Moved by Audrey, seconder. Second by Sherry Lynn. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion's carried. Again, just want to say nyawa to our community for joining us this evening at General Council. We'll look forward to rejoining at our next meeting, I believe, which is Finance this upcoming Monday. That's via live Facebook. So thank you again, and everyone continue to stay safe and stay healthy.